Try not to get us killed on the way there.
So Devil May Cry 5 just around the corner, the hype for DMC hasn't been this high for almost a decade, but with the hype train going over 1,000 miles an hour, we almost forget to look back and see what started it all. Because when we hear gamers talk about Devil May Cry, the first game that usually pops into our minds is Devil May Cry 3, where it features the heated rivalry between the young and cocky Dante and his cold and precise twin brother Vergil. Or maybe some fans out there would even argue that we think of Devil May Cry 4 since it was the last iteration of the DMC canon, where it featured the new and brash character Nero and his powerful Devil Bringer. With all the media coverage of Dante leading up to DMC 5, always showing him as this bombastic and confident character who always seems to be in control of the situation, it just further highlights the version of Dante that we've seen in Devil May Cry 3. It's no secret that this version of him has been the most popular among fans, seeing him cross over to other games and making cameos on other titles like Marvel vs. Capcom. But with all the hype and coverage of all the other Devil May Cry titles that's gone, we almost forget the quiet gem that started it all. The game that revolutionized the hack and slash genre, the game who introduced us to our favorite demon slaying hunter himself. Devil May Cry 1, the quiet trailblazer who started it all, the game who laid out the foundation for future titles of this series, the game who created this amazing fandom which transcends beyond the gaming industry's medium. With this popularity soaring so high that we're going to be introduced to a new Devil May Cry Netflix series, and it's produced by the same man who was also the producer of the highly regarded Castlevania Netflix series. But anyways, back to the point though, I just want to pay homage to the game that's hooked all of us gamers into this franchise, and look back as to what made Devil May Cry 1 the start of an amazing series. Anyways, what is up you guys, this is Hey DeVuH, and in this video we're going to be covering some general aspects as to what made this game the trailblazer that it is, and how it laid out the groundwork for the future titles after it.
Let's rock, baby.
Some of these aspects that we discuss are how Dante was established as a character, the introduction to the new combat system with a stylish rank meter, to his gothic environments and soundtracks, to his laying the seeds of story content for future titles to explore upon. So as a complete fanboy of this franchise, I even surprised myself that I haven't done an analysis video on Devil May Cry yet. I mean, most of my content so far has just been gameplay of DMC 1. So if you guys haven't checked it out yet, I'll leave a card on your top right section of your screen so you guys have an option to check it out. But I'll also leave a link down below, so if you guys do enjoy my content, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. So with Devil May Cry 1 initially released in 2001, we were introduced to the progenitor of the cool and stylish hack and slash genre, where the players were able to do insane combos using our devil arms and being ranked depending on how well we execute our attacks. From our initial impression, you wouldn't think this title was originally supposed to be Resident Evil 4, because during its development, it strayed away so far from the slow and survival horror aspects of the original Resident Evil series to become this fast-paced and action-heavy oriented title. Eventually, the development team named Team Little Devils, led by the renowned Hideki Kamiya, the director of the classic Resident Evil 2, produced what we gamers have come to praise and love, Devil May Cry 1, where we're introduced to the cool and cocky character who would transcend beyond its gaming medium. With our initial introduction to him was in his famous Devil May Cry shop, where we see both him and the mysterious Trish have a very casual dialogue.
Whoa, slow down, babe.
Well, what do we have here?
Talking about how he only takes special jobs, until we get an exposition from Trish revealing Dante to be the son of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta, and how Dante lost both his brother and mother to evil 20 years ago. With the ensuing clash between the two, we quickly see that Dante is no one to be trifled with. Using his trademark handguns Ebony and Ivory, we see him overpower Trish and clearly showing his demonic power.
Even as a child, I had powers.
But after the encounter, she reveals that she is not the enemy, and that Mundus, the Prince of Darkness, is planning to take over the world, and he's starting this at a place called Malay Island. So far, the game already establishes our protagonist, giving him a quick backstory and motivation as to why he should even care for the job that Trish proposed. All we know is that Dante is a character who exemplifies confidence, with both his dialogue and his actions, knowing he's different from the rest due to his demonic heritage.
I came here to seek your help, to put an end to the underworld.
What?
But at the same time still establishes him as some sort of an avenger or a person with a sense of justice against the hordes of hell, especially since he seems to collect some of the heads of the demons that he has killed in the past. But what I love about this game is how it still leaves little seeds of narrative for future titles to explore upon. A clear example of this is that Dante had a brother who was lost to evil in the past, hence Devil May Cry 3. So if you guys want me to do an in-depth look about DMC 3, please leave a comment down below if you guys would be interested. But anyways, the game also shows little subtleties of mystery and intrigue when we see Trish turn around to face Dante, then cuts off to a picture of his mother, who Trish seems to resemble very closely. With the opening narrative already established, we already have a small sample size of Dante's foundation, which would give rise to his future iterations of the series. So let's go back to the meat and bones of this game, where we cover the hack and slash portion of this title, and how far in depth we can go when it comes to his combat system. With Dante starting off with his keepsake sword Force Edge and his trademark handguns Ebony and Ivory, we can already start a combo rampage on this game. With the easy to use control scheme, we the players were given the freedom to hack up all the enemies in our way, ranging from Dante doing his standard 3-slash attack to him slashing the enemies up in the air and juggling them in the air while using his handguns. We can also mix up his attacks, and if we carefully time our button sequence, we can have Dante perform different combos, like having him perform a 1000 stab attack or doing an aerial attack then hold himself in the air with the aid of his handguns. But during our progression through the game, we can acquire special weapons, also known as devil arms, which grants Dante extra movesets that help us fight against the demonic hordes of this castle. But before I talk more about the movesets that are granted when acquiring these devil arms, one very important addition to this game was introduced. It almost goes hand in hand when we talk about Dante and his powers. What I'm talking about is the acquisition of his devil trigger ability. So when we the players first encounter the wall that has Alistar embedded in it, we see Dante get impaled by the sword to see if he's worthy of his power. After lifting himself off the sword, we see Dante in one of the most amazing scenes of the game. With this new devil arm, this game introduced the function of having the ability to perform a devil trigger, where we see Dante transform into a demonic version of himself, but still remains the silhouette of a human, where he's able to perform the same movesets from the start of the game, but it's enhanced to deal more damage to the enemies. He's also able to run much faster and also regain some health, and he's able to perform an aerial raid where he sends streams of electricity down on his enemies. It's almost like Dante is performing his own version of turning into a Super Saiyan, where we see Dante crush his enemies with newfound power, enhancing both his swordsmanship and gunplay. This introduction of the Devil Trigger was a great addition to the game and became a series staple for future titles. It plays a big role in the lore of Devil May Cry just because of Dante's half-demon heritage. They explored this aspect of Dante in DMC 3, where we see him transform to his Devil Trigger for the first time after being defeated by Vergil. It's one aspect of him that makes him unique, beyond his already superhuman abilities. I mean, what better ability for him to acquire to further emphasize his character? Not only does this help us in-game, but also lets the series play around with this concept in other versions of the Devil Trigger. The name Devil Trigger alone is already widely popular due to it being one of the main soundtracks for Devil May Cry 5. It's great to look back and see how this one ability has truly paved its way to the future. Looking back in hindsight, the creation of Devil Trigger is one of the most prominent successes that this game trailblazed. But back to Dante's acquisition of other devil arms in this game, we see him become a very versatile character to handle. Seeing him use a Force Edge or Alistar to his fullest ability is a marvel in itself. Seeing him perform attacks are still to this day a mainstay in his wide array of movesets and attacks, ranging from performing a roundhouse attack where we see him throw his swords towards the enemies like a boomerang, to him performing his famous stinger attack where he lunges towards his enemies with a forceful blow. We see him perform acrobatic moves with his swordsmanship that during its time of release was unheard of. The added stylish ranking meter also emphasized to us gamers to perform more of these amazing combos. It's a fun idea that was introduced to this game that incentivized us players to experiment with our movesets so we can see how high of a stylish ranking we can attain. But with the addition of Alistar and the Devil Trigger ability, Dante also receives a new Devil Arm, another weapon that would also be a signature type of weapon that would be used for future releases. With this new Devil devil arm being called Ifrit. This weapon, in contrast to its sword counterpart, works much different. Here we have Dante wearing magma gauntlets, and it works almost the opposite of his swordplay that we got accustomed to. The weapon does deal more damage but moves slower in speed. Each hit that Dante produces really does feel like an impact to the enemies that we face. The screen of our gameplay usually shakes as if a quick tremor just passed by, almost similar as when we launch with our stinger attack. With this new devil arm, the game gave Dante a new way to pave his way through the missions. It really does feel like it changes the pace very drastically, where we have to be a little bit more precise with our moves and attacks, but the reward for hitting an enemy is its own reward. Just the fact that this game opened up the gates for Dante to acquire new weapons in a stylish manner that makes him more versatile would also be seen in the future titles of the series. Both DMC 3 and 4 showcase this feature in a usual grand spectacle, ranging from Dante acquiring the frozen nunchucks of Cerberus to acquiring the multi-tooled Pandora's box. Overall, the countless movesets, the different devil arms, the addition of our devil trigger, and the stylish ranking meter, all this blended together to make an exciting action-packed title who incentivize the players to continue to learn and grow their combat repertoire, giving the players a bombastic and fun time hacking and slashing the demons that are in front of us. In a way, I'm kinda glad that they made this game its own title instead of forcing it to be molded into a Resident Evil game. Had they done that, we would be missing out on the iconic demon hunter himself and all his shenanigans that we've come to love. But with all the movesets and weapons that Dante acquires, it was only important that DMC1 delivered in its enemies as well, because without them, our stylish combat gameplay would be pretty lackluster, so they really had to amp it up with the bosses and demons in the game. So DMC1 had a variety of enemies that we encounter, some more iconic than others, ranging from going up against the bloody puppets to fighting the weird nobody demons. Some of the enemies themselves would also be highlighted in the future games of the series, like both the Frost and Blaze in DMC4, and also the Sin Scissors, which makes an appearance in the new Devil May Cry 5 trailer. But with the countless demons that we faced, there were some that stood out from the rest. One in particular is the Shadow. Here we have an enemy who is not only fast, but also invulnerable to Dante's sword attacks, unless if we reveal its middle core. But it's awesome to think that DMC1 showcased an enemy who forces the players to play very smart, especially since the Shadow can attack in a variety of ways, ranging from stabbing you from a distance to throwing itself at you like a large shuriken. The player really needs to be ready in fighting these demons, always on our toes, using all of our moves and tricks that we've learned so far. If we're not prepared to fight this demon, then we can end up like this. You couldn't imagine how difficult this was playing on the hardest difficulty and fighting two shadows at one time, especially with the added soundtrack of Psycho Siren playing in the background. But with all its difficulty, there was one thing that really stood out in my mind while fighting all the enemies in this game. The one thing that makes the game so addictive is that this game was just so much fun. With the blended movesets of Dante fighting against the hordes of demon, it was just a perfect combination of challenge and fun that hooked all of us to DMC's combat system. This game created something so special with its combat system where we the players can feel like we're in the zone. It's no secret that some chosen few individuals who mastered DMC's combat system for the future titles really explored each facet of Dante's arsenal. It's just great to see that this game was the start of it all. Even though its combat system compared to its most recent titles may seem bare bones, it was this leap of faith that the developers made for this game that enabled us gamers to blossom our combat skills in the future iterations of Devil May Cry, that we're able to marvel at the many combo videos on YouTube that we see today. But after our mastery of the combat system against the smaller enemies so far, it's only a reasonable conclusion that we eventually test our skills against some of the bosses in this game. With Devil May Cry as a whole, we were introduced to some of the greatest boss battles that we've dealt with in gaming. One instance that stands out of the rest is our many battles against Dante's twin brother Vergil in Devil May Cry 3. But as a trailblazer that DMC1 was, it's only fitting that this game included some very fun boss battles in itself, where we see Dante face some of the bosses up to 3 times during our playthrough. It just further emphasizes the nature of the combat system in this game, making us players have to adapt and continually get better as the game progresses. DMC1 really set the standard as to what makes a great boss battle, where we have Dante face off against the first boss in the game, Phantom, where we see this gigantic scorpion spider hybrid who's also enveloped with lava, who's able to shoot fireballs from his mouth, to jumping up high in the air to crush Dante, to having him send meteors at you. Also, added the fact that he can chase after you as you traverse through the castle is another thing that makes this boss stand out. But there were other bosses out there that we fight against countless times, ranging from fighting against the demonic bird Griffin, who's able to attack you using a variety of electric-based attacks, to our encounter against the difficult to beat Nightmare, where we see this blob-like monster with a shell who is able to shoot ice beams while at the same time only being damaged if we either hit his core or escape the Nightmare realm. But one boss in particular caught my eye, someone who could go toe-to-toe with Dante in terms of both combat skill and cockiness. I'm talking about Nelo Angelo, who is also known as Vergil. As I've mentioned Vergil several times in this video, this was actually the very first time we encounter him, but here we have him as a Black Knight who's able to display some very familiar swordsmanship like Dante. Seeing him perform a similar attacks to Dante's Stinger to doing a 4-hit combo, he's not only limited by the many swordsmanship attributes that Dante has, he can also teleport and shoot spheres of blue energy at you. As much as I want Mundus to be our main baddie for this game, it was actually Nelo Angelo who would help transcend Devil May Cry into the future. Knowing very little at the early part of the game, it was revealed later on after our third encounter with him that he was actually Dante's brother Vergil. There were several hints throughout our encounters with him that may have you suspect that this person may be related to Dante, but it's only after seeing him drop the other half of their mother's amulet and Mundus mentioning Vergil by name confirms that he was indeed Dante's brother. It's amazing that this one boss character alone was able to catapult Devil May Cry's lore even more, allowing us to have a future title where we get the backstory as to who Vergil was and how he ended up becoming Nelo Angelo.
It'll be fun to fight with the Prince of Darkness. If my father did it, I should be able to do it too.
Even though there wasn't much narrative that explains who exactly Nelo Angelo was in this game, there was enough seeds of content that allowed the future development of Devil May Cry to expound upon some of Vergil's intent and backstory. I mean, look, we all know that Vergil is just as popular as Dante, even though we only truly see him fleshed out in DMC3. To this day, we're all hoping that he makes his return in DMC5. It's just crazy to think that this one boss character alone could have such an impact in a series that is running more than a decade long. This is the perfect example as to why Devil May Cry 1's story and content had to be laid out in the perfect manner, so it can be the foundation for the future titles of the series. But after going through the trials and tribulations against the boss in Devil May Cry 1, we almost forget that each encounter with these foes helps Dante further develop his persona into the character that we all love today, showing his confidence when faced against a larger adversary like the Phantom, where he taunts him right before the fight.
What a big surprise. I hope for your sake you got something inside that big body of yours.
Similarly, he did the same thing to Griffin when encountering him near the Colosseum area.
Are you the human, the son of Sparta who challenges the darkness mundus?
Block off, Featherface, or you can stick around and find out the hard way.
His encounter with Nelo Angelo before the third fight shows that he has no qualms of complimenting an enemy with the way they conduct themselves, giving praise to the Black Knight with the way he handles himself.
A man with guts and honor. I like that. But it's a shame you serve Mundus.
But with all the cockiness and confidence that Dante exudes, he is grounded enough to show empathy, regardless if they're one of his arch enemies. A clear example of this is after the third fight with Griffin.
Even more so. But I cannot let you live. I serve my master Mundus.
You can't fight with that wound.
Sure, the narrative, the story, and the overall campiness of Dante as a whole may seem a little cringy, but that's what made him great. We're led to believe that he's always this overconfident demon slayer, but deep down, he has shown to have a better heart than a lot of humans on this earth.
Tell me that my father was a man who fought for the people. He had courage and a righteous heart. In the name of my father, I will kill Mundus.
Even after Trisha's betrayal, he had no second thoughts of saving her, and he was still able to find some restraint to keep himself from killing her.
Dante! Dante, why did you save my life?
Because you look like my mother. A
Get out of my sight. The next time we meet, it won't be like this.
Dante!
Don't come any closer, you devil! You may look like my mother, but you're nowhere close to her. You have no soul. You have the face, but you'll never have her fire!
But with all the troubles that Trish has caused Dante, he again shows his empathy when he shows concerns after finding out Mundus has her tied up near the ceiling.
Trish!
Don't even think about it. Blink. She dies.
Trish!
But with all the trauma and ordeals that Dante has gone through to this point of the game, fighting against his brother Vergil, losing his mother, and Trish's apparent death gave rise to the perfect culmination of motivation for Dante to finally go toe to toe with the Prince of Darkness himself.
How much longer are you going to keep zapping? Come out and show yourself, Mundus!
Seeing this godly looking being spread his wings as if he's an angel, transporting both Dante and himself to a different dimension where both proceed to do battle. But with all the innovations that this game has shown, it was very strange that they went with a rail shooter type of boss fight with the first part of their encounter. I mean, DMC1 made it clear that it wanted to establish a stylish hack and slash gameplay to be the focal point of most of the encounters in this game. But the sudden change in pace and combat, in my opinion, was great. The rail shooter portion just further emphasized the sheer magnitude of the event, having both characters fight each other in a larger dimension, showing that the previous environment wouldn't suffice for the onslaught that both will be dealing with each other. Sure, my opinion isn't the most popular out there when it came to changing the pace of the combat system for this portion of the boss fight, but this is why Devil May Cry 1 was great. It gave rise to so many innovations in terms of combat that it had to try out several different systems, shown from this portion of the boss fight to the underwater sequences we had from the previous missions. Eventually the game brings us back to our normal combat system and have us fight against Mundus using our sword Sparta. Wielding the full power of his father, we have Dante ensue into this epic battle, attacking Mundus with our enhanced devil trigger, which gives us the appearance of Sparta, to hurling fireballs at him. With Mundus also fighting back, where he's able to summon a molten dragon, hit you with an energy blast, or send meteors at you. Eventually we're able to beat the Prince of Darkness and watch him in agony after being defeated. But after the ensuing battle, we go back to the palace area where we met Mundus face to face to find Trish still laying there. Throughout Dante's journey in DMC1, we had a chance to follow him from his initial overconfident persona to a range of different emotional highs and lows, but with this next sequence we get to see Dante fleshed out as a character.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
Sure, this was extremely cringy, but how else was Dante supposed to act in that situation? Showing tremendous heart that he's willing to leave items that he held dear to someone he cares about.
This was my mother's.
It's funny to think that this kind of campiness to him didn't change much from the future Devil May Cry releases, having him say one-liners that made us quench for a second. But it was these moments from DMC1 that gave rise to the character that we all love. Even with all the cringiness and flaws that Dante has shown in this game, there was something that made us gamers connect to him. Maybe somewhere deep inside all of us we want to show the same confidence as Dante, but still have enough humility to show empathy towards others. Maybe I'm looking too much into this, but hey, it's great food for thought. Anyways, in our final mission where we attempt to escape Malay Island, this game gives us one more thrill, having us fight against Mundus one last time.
The cage
I'm not going anywhere! Besides, there's no place to go! Look around!
But the Prince of Darkness will eventually fall after we hear Dante say one of his signature phrases.
Jackpot.
It's awesome to know that this single phrase alone is synonymous with the DMC brand, where it's shown several times throughout the series. It's even one of the highlights in the new DMC 5 trailer. But overall, with all the aspects that this game trailblazed, it doesn't seem to get the same popularity compared to DMC 3, 4, and the upcoming DMC 5. With the Video Game Awards or TGA just around the corner, the hype for DMC 5 may be bigger by the end of 2018. But let's not forget the game who was the seed that started it all, the seed that would eventually blossom into this massive franchise that many gamers hold dear. Because as we look back and appreciate the past accomplishments of this game, it's just great to experience the fruition of this amazing title, Devil May Cry 1, The Quiet Trailblazer. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching my video. If there was anything I missed or forgot to mention, please comment down below so I can be aware of it. If you guys enjoyed my analysis of this game, please check out my channel for other Devil May Cry content, and I'll be uploading more DMC and Resident Evil gameplay soon, so stay tuned for that. Again, thank you guys so much for your time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you next time.